Welcome to my channel, a read that brings your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The white silk of my wedding dress weighed 1,000 pounds as I ran. Each desperate breath burned my lungs, the October air sharp and unforgiving as my bare feet slapped against cold pavement. Behind me, the cathedral bells still echoed, their mocking chime announcing a union that would never happen because I'd done the unthinkable. I'd fled my own wedding. My father's face flashed through my mind, purple with rage as I'd torn away from his iron grip at the altar. The groom, Marco Salvatore, a man whose dead eyes promised nothing but cruelty, had actually smiled when I'd bolted, as if my fear amused him, as if he enjoyed the hunt that would inevitably follow. I clutched the ridiculous veil in one hand, my other hiking up layers of tulle and lace that kept threatening to trip me. My carefully styled hair had already come loose, dark curls whipping around my face as I turned down another unfamiliar street. I'd grown up in this neighborhood, attended that very cathedral since childhood, but fear had a way of making everything look foreign. Where was I even going? I had no phone, no money, no plan beyond the primal need to run. My father had made sure I had nothing, no bank accounts in my own name, no credit cards, no independence. Everything was his to control, including me. And when I'd become too difficult, too mouthy, too unwilling to smile and nod, he'd decided the perfect solution was marrying me off to his business partner. A man twice my age who collected wives the way other men collected cars. The sound of engines made my blood run cold. Black SUVs, at least 3 of them, turning onto the street behind me. My father's men. Or worse, Marco's. I could hear shouting, the screech of tires as they spotted me. Panic gave me speed I didn't know I possessed. I darted down an alley, my bare feet finding every piece of broken glass, every sharp stone. The pain barely registered through the adrenaline. I burst out onto another street, this one lined with expensive cars and upscale businesses, the kind of neighborhood where someone like me, in a destroyed wedding dress, would draw attention. That's when I saw it. A sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows, idling at the curb. The driver's door was open, the driver nowhere in sight. Probably ducked into one of the shops for a quick errand. I didn't think, couldn't think. Just acted. I yanked open the rear door and threw myself inside, slamming it shut and immediately ducking down behind the tinted privacy divider. The interior smelled of expensive leather and something else. Cologne, maybe, woody and masculine and utterly foreign. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my throat, in my temples, in every pulse point of my body. The SUVs roared past outside, so close I could hear the angry voices of the men inside. I pressed myself lower, my ruined dress pooling around me on the spotless floor mats, my breathing harsh and ragged in the confined space. Slowly, the sounds faded. They'd driven past. I'd actually done it. I'd escaped. Relief made me dizzy, or maybe that was the lack of oxygen from holding my breath for so long. I allowed myself to sit up slightly, my back against the plush leather seat, my eyes closed as I tried to calm my racing pulse. That's when I heard it. The driver's door opening. Someone sliding into the front seat with fluid, confident movements. The door closing with an expensive, solid thunk. My eyes flew open, meeting the rearview mirror and the coldest gray eyes I'd ever seen. The man looked to be in his mid-30s, with dark hair styled back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Strong jaw, straight nose, a thin scar along his left cheekbone that somehow made him more handsome rather than less. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, and he regarded me with the kind of calm assessment that suggested finding women in wedding dresses in his back seat was mildly inconvenient rather than alarming. "Well," he said, his voice a deep rumble with the slightest Italian accent. "This is unexpected. I should have apologized, should have scrambled out of the car immediately. Should have done anything except stare at him like a terrified rabbit. "Please," I whispered instead. "Please just drive. Anywhere. Just go." One dark eyebrow rose fractionally. "Should I be concerned that you're being pursued?" "Yes. No, I mean..." I struggled to form coherent thoughts. "I just need to get away from here, please." He studied me for a long moment, those gray eyes taking in every detail. The destroyed dress, the bare feet, the panic I couldn't quite hide. Then, without another word, he started the engine and pulled smoothly away from the curb. I sagged against the seat, relief flooding through me so intensely it made my eyes sting. We drove in silence for several minutes, leaving my neighborhood behind, heading toward parts of the city I'd only ever glimpsed from car windows. "Where should I take you?" he asked finally, his eyes meeting mine again in the rearview mirror. The question paralyzed me. I had nowhere to go. No friends my father hadn't alienated or bought off. No family who would stand against him. No resources beyond the destroyed dress I was wearing. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice small. "I don't have anywhere." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then I suppose you'll come with me." It should have terrified me. Getting into a stranger's car, agreeing to go to an unknown location with a man whose name I didn't even know. But strangely, sitting in that quiet, elegant car with this composed stranger felt safer than anywhere I'd been in years. "What's your name?" I asked, as we merged onto the highway. "Rick," he replied simply. "Rick Moretti. And you are?" "Rachel Marchetti." The surname tasted bitter. My father's name, a brand I'd been trying to escape my entire life. "Marchetti," Rick repeated, something flickering in those cool gray eyes. "Anthony Marchetti's daughter." It wasn't a question. My stomach dropped. Of course he knew. Everyone in certain circles knew my father, knew his reputation, his connections, his business interests that existed in the shadows where legitimate enterprise ended and something darker began. "You know him," I said flatly. "I know of him." The distinction seemed important to Rick, though I couldn't understand why. "And I know you were supposed to marry Marco Salvatore today." Horror must have shown on my face because his expression softened almost imperceptibly. "The wedding has been the talk of certain communities for weeks," he explained. "A strategic alliance between the Marchetti and Salvatore families. Quite the business arrangement." "I'm not a business arrangement," I said, surprising myself with the vehemence in my voice. "I'm a person who doesn't want to marry a monster." "Marco Salvatore is many things," Rick agreed quietly. "A monster is certainly among them." We drove in silence after that, the city giving way to more exclusive neighborhoods, then to a private road that wound through carefully manicured grounds. Finally, we pulled up to a modern building, all glass and steel in elegant lines, with security that made my father's compound look like a suburban home. Rick parked in an underground garage, in a spot marked private, reserved. He got out, came around to my door, and opened it with old-fashioned courtesy that seemed at odds with his obvious wealth and power. "Come," he said, offering his hand. "Let's get you somewhere safe." I hesitated only a moment before placing my hand in his. His grip was warm, firm, steadying as he helped me from the car. The concrete was cold against my bare feet, making me shiver. Without warning, Rick shrugged out of his suit jacket and draped it around my shoulders. The fabric still held his body heat, that woody cologne scent stronger now, somehow comforting. "Thank you," I whispered. He didn't respond, just gestured toward an elevator with his hand at the small of my back, not quite touching but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. The elevator required a key, which Rick produced from his pocket. We rode up in silence, my reflection in the polished walls, showing exactly how much of a disaster I looked. Hair wild, makeup smeared, a wedding dress that had cost my father $30,000 now stained and torn. When the elevator opened, it opened directly into an apartment. Not an apartment building with hallways and doors, just straight into what was clearly Rick Moretti's private space. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, modern furniture in shades of charcoal and cream, original artwork on the walls. Everything spoke of wealth, but it was understated wealth, confident enough that it didn't need to prove anything. "The bathroom is through there," Rick said, pointing to a hallway. "There should be a robe you can change into. We'll figure out clothes tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" I echoed. "You'll stay here tonight," he said, and it wasn't quite a question. "I'll make up the guest room. In the morning, we can discuss your options." "I can't stay here," I protested weakly. "I don't even know you." Those gray eyes met mine, intense and somehow sad. "No, you don't. But you know Marco Salvatore, and you know your father. Which of us is the greater danger, Rachel?" He was right. God help me, he was right. This stranger with his cold eyes and expensive apartment felt infinitely safer than the men I'd known my entire life. "Okay," I agreed softly. "Just for tonight." Something that might have been approval crossed his face. "Go clean up. I'll order dinner. Do you have any preferences?" The mundane question, asked in that calm voice, nearly broke me. When was the last time anyone had asked what I wanted? "Anything," I managed. "Anything without meat. I'm vegetarian." He nodded once, already pulling out his phone. "Go. Take your time." The bathroom was as luxurious as the rest of the apartment, all marble and glass with a shower that looked like it could fit 3 people. I caught sight of myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. This morning, my reflection had shown a carefully made-up bride. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, every inch of me prepared for a wedding I'd dreaded. Now I looked wild, desperate, real in a way I hadn't been allowed to be in years. I peeled off the ruined dress with shaking hands, leaving it in a silk puddle on the heated tile floor. The shower was so hot it almost hurt, but I stood under the spray until my skin was pink, until the water ran clear, until I could almost believe I'd washed away the morning's terror. The robe Rick had mentioned was thick and soft, wrapping around me like a warm hug. It was far too large, clearly meant for someone of Rick's size, and I had to roll the sleeves up several times. But it was clean and warm, and not a wedding dress, and that was enough. When I emerged, I found Rick in the kitchen, which was open to the living room. He'd removed his tie and rolled up his sleeves, looking somehow more approachable without losing any of his commanding presence. "Better?" he asked without looking up from whatever he was doing. "Much, thank you." He'd set out plates on the island, along with what looked like takeout containers from an expensive restaurant. The smell made my stomach growl loudly enough that he heard it, his mouth twitching in what might have been amusement. "Sit," he instructed. "Eat." I did, discovering I was ravenous. The food was delicious, some kind of pasta with vegetables and olive oil, crusty bread, a salad with dressing that tasted homemade. We ate in surprisingly comfortable silence, Rick checking his phone occasionally but otherwise focused on his meal. It was only when we'd finished, when he was making coffee with an expensive machine that probably required an engineering degree, that he finally spoke. "Your father will be looking for you." "I know." "Marco Salvatore will be looking for you." "I know that too." Rick poured 2 cups of coffee, adding cream to mine without asking, as though he'd somehow intuited how I took it. He slid one across the island to me before leaning against the counter, those gray eyes studying me with unnerving intensity. "They'll find you eventually," he said quietly. "Men like that always do. Unless..." "Unless what?" "Unless you disappear completely." He took a sip of his coffee. "Change your name. Leave the city. Start over somewhere they'd never think to look. Hope fluttered weakly in my chest. Could I do that? Just disappear? With the right help? Yes. And you could provide that help? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Rick Moretti wasn't just some wealthy businessman who happened to have a nice apartment and expensive taste. Men like him existed in the same shadows my father did, operated by the same rules, wielded the same kind of power. I could, he confirmed, for a price. There it was, the catch I'd been waiting for. Nothing in my world was ever truly free. What price? I asked, proud that my voice didn't shake. He studied me for a long moment, something unreadable in those cold gray eyes. Finally, he set down his coffee cup. I don't know yet, he admitted, but you'll stay here while I figure it out. And Rachel? His voice dropped lower. Don't try to run. You ran once today. If you run from me, I will find you, and the men chasing you now will look like amateurs compared to my reach. It should have terrified me. Instead, I felt that strange sense of safety intensify. Because unlike my father, unlike Marco, Rick Moretti was being honest. No false promises, no manipulation disguised as care. Just the cold truth, delivered without apology. I won't run, I said, and meant it. His slight nod acknowledged my promise. Good. Now finish your coffee. You look exhausted. I was exhausted. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving me hollow and shaky. But as I sat in Rick Moretti's kitchen, wrapped in his robe, drinking coffee he'd made, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, and the terrifying possibility of freedom. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows I didn't recognize. For a disorienting moment, I thought I was still dreaming. Then memory crashed back. The wedding, the escape, Rick Moretti's car, this apartment. I sat up slowly, taking in the guest room he'd prepared for me. It was larger than my childhood bedroom, decorated in calming shades of blue and cream. Someone had laid out clothes on the chair near the window. Women's clothes, in what looked like my exact size. My stomach twisted. How had he known my size? I padded barefoot to examine them. Designer jeans that probably cost more than my monthly allowance had been. A soft cashmere sweater in dove gray, even undergarments still with tags attached. Everything perfect, everything expensive, everything exactly what I would have chosen for myself if I'd had the chance. The thought should have comforted me. Instead, it sent a chill down my spine. Rick Moretti was either very observant or very prepared. Neither option was particularly reassuring. I dressed quickly, finger combing my tangled hair as best I could. The bathroom had been stocked with toiletries, all high-end brands, all unopened. I brushed my teeth with a toothbrush still in its package, washed my face with cleanser that smelled of lavender, tried to make myself look less like a woman who'd fled her wedding and more like someone in control of her life. The illusion was thin, but it was something. When I emerged from the guest room, I found Rick in the kitchen again. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up to reveal tanned forearms. He was making breakfast with the casual efficiency of someone comfortable in his own space. "Good morning," he said without turning around. "Coffee?" "Please." My voice came out rough, unused. He poured a cup, added cream, and slid it across the island to me. Just like last night, he'd known exactly how I took it without asking. "How did you sleep?" he asked, cracking eggs into a pan with practiced ease. "Better than I expected." It was true. Despite everything, I'd slept deeply, dreamlessly, my body finally surrendering to exhaustion. "Good. You needed it." He glanced at me over his shoulder. "The clothes fit?" "Perfectly. How did you know my size?" His mouth quirked slightly. "I'm observant." That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. He turned back to the stove. Scrambled eggs, okay? I have vegetables to add since you don't eat meat. The casual domesticity of the moment was so at odds with the strangeness of my situation that I almost laughed. Almost. That's fine. Thank you. We ate in silence, Rick checking his phone occasionally, his expression growing more thoughtful with each message. I tried not to stare at him, but it was difficult. In daylight, he was even more striking than he'd been last night. The scar on his cheekbone caught the light, giving him a dangerous edge that his expensive clothes couldn't quite mask. I need to go out for a few hours, he said finally, setting his phone down. Business. Can I come with you? The question surprised us both. His eyes narrowed slightly. Why? Because sitting here alone all day will drive me crazy, I admitted, and because I have nowhere else to go. He studied me for a long moment, then shook his head. Not today. It's not safe. Safe from what? My father? Marco? I leaned forward. Rick, they already know I ran. Hiding here won't change that. You're not hiding. His voice was firm. You're being protected. There's a difference. Protected like a person or protected like a possession? Something flickered in those gray eyes. Anger, maybe, or respect. Like someone whose safety matters to me. The admission hung in the air between us, weighted with meaning I couldn't quite decipher. Fine, I said, though frustration burned in my chest. I'll stay here. He nodded, standing and rolling down his sleeves. Don't open the door for anyone. Don't answer the phone if it rings. Don't leave the apartment for any reason. Anything else? I couldn't keep the sarcasm from my voice. Yes. He pulled on his suit jacket with fluid grace. Don't make me regret helping you. The words stung more than they should have. Before I could formulate a response, he was gone, the elevator doors closing behind him with quiet finality. I spent the morning exploring the apartment, trying to piece together who Rick Moretti really was from the details of his space. The books on his shelves were an eclectic mix: classic literature in Italian, philosophy, military history, and surprisingly, poetry. The artwork was original, most of it by Italian artists I vaguely recognized from my art history classes. The kitchen was stocked with expensive ingredients, suggesting he actually cooked, despite clearly having the money to eat out every night. The living room held a state-of-the-art sound system and a collection of vinyl records that leaned heavily toward jazz and classical music. Everything was immaculate, organized, controlled, just like the man himself. It was mid-afternoon when I heard it. The soft chime of the elevator arriving. My heart jumped, but it couldn't be Rick. He had a key. He wouldn't need to announce himself. I pressed myself against the wall near the kitchen, my pulse racing, as the elevator doors opened. A woman stepped out. She was stunning, with glossy dark hair, red lips, and a designer dress that showed off curves I could never hope to achieve. She carried shopping bags from stores I'd only ever glimpsed from car windows. "Rick," she called, her voice carrying a slight accent. Italian, but different from Rick's. More pronounced. "Tesoro, are you home?" I stayed frozen, not breathing, as she moved deeper into the apartment. She set the shopping bags on the island, pulled out her phone, and dialed. "Rick, it's Isabella," she said when someone answered. "I'm at your apartment. I brought you those shirts you asked for, and I thought we could have dinner tonight. Call me back." She hung up, then started opening cabinets with the familiarity of someone who'd been here many times before. Looking for wine, maybe, or glasses. I should have stayed hidden, should have let her pour her wine and leave. But something contrary in me, something that had been building since I'd fled my wedding, made me step out of my hiding spot. "He's not here," I said, Isabella spun around, her eyes widening as she took in my presence. The clothes that were clearly from Rick's closet, the barefoot casualness of my stance. "And you are?" Her tone had gone from friendly to glacial in seconds. "Rachel, I'm staying here for a few days." Her perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Staying here? Rick doesn't have guests." "Well, apparently he does now." We stared at each other, two women sizing up the competition. Because that's what this was, I realized. Isabella wasn't just a friend or a shopping assistant. The way she'd called him tesoro, the familiarity with which she'd entered his space, the possessiveness in her eyes. She was his lover, or wanted to be. "How long have you known Rick?" she asked, her tone deceptively casual. "Not long. I see." She picked up her phone, typed something quickly. "Does he know you're here? Right now, I mean?" "Of course he knows. This is his apartment." She studied me with those calculating eyes. "You're not his usual type." "And what's his usual type?" A smile curved her red lips, sharp as a blade. "Let's just say Rick has very specific tastes, and honey, you don't fit them." The insult was delivered with such elegant cruelty that it took me a second to fully process it. But before I could formulate a response, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression shifting from smugness to something harder to read. "I have to go," she said abruptly, gathering her shopping bags. "Tell Rick I stopped by. And Rachel?" She paused at the elevator. "Whatever you think this is, whatever he told you, don't get comfortable. Rick doesn't keep strays." The elevator doors closed on her parting shot, leaving me alone with the echo of her words and the sick feeling in my stomach. Was that what I was? A stray he'd picked up out of some misguided sense of chivalry? I was still standing there, frozen with doubts, when the elevator chimed again. This time it was Rick, and he took one look at my face before his expression hardened. "What happened?" "A woman named Isabella stopped by. She said she brought you shirts." "Isabella." His jaw tightened. "What did she say to you?" "Nothing important." I turned away, suddenly unable to meet his eyes. "She made it clear I'm not your usual type, and that I shouldn't get comfortable." Rick was across the room before I could blink, his hands on my shoulders, spinning me to face him. His eyes blazed with an anger I hadn't seen before. "Isabella Cortese is a business associate's daughter who has decided we're more than we are," he said, his voice low and intense. "She has a key to this building because her father owns the penthouse upstairs. She does not have a key to my apartment. She does not have permission to be here. And she certainly doesn't have the right to make you feel unwelcome." "I'm not unwelcome?" "You're under my protection, Rachel. That means this is your home for as long as you need it. Do you understand?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. His hands gentled on my shoulders, his thumbs tracing small circles. "I should have told you someone might try to access the building. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again." "How?" I whispered. A cold smile crossed his face. "I'll have a conversation with her father. By this time tomorrow, Isabella Cortese will have forgotten this apartment exists." The casual certainty with which he said it sent a shiver through me. This was the real Rick Moretti, not the man who made breakfast and knew how I took my coffee, but the one who could end people's access, their comfort, their safety, with a few well-placed words. "That's not necessary," I said. "I can handle Isabella. Perhaps, but I don't want you to have to." His eyes searched my face. "You've spent your entire life handling things you shouldn't have to handle. Let me take care of this." The offer was seductive in its simplicity. Someone else solving my problems, shouldering my burdens, protecting me from threats both large and small. It was also dangerous, because protection could so easily become control. Care could morph into possession, and I'd already escaped one cage today. I couldn't afford to walk willingly into another. "Okay," I agreed softly. But Rick? Yes? I need to know what I'm walking into here. Who you really are. What kind of man offers to help a stranger who jumped into his car? He studied me for a long moment, something like resignation crossing his face. Then he stepped back, creating distance between us. Come, he said. I'll show you. He led me to his office, a room I hadn't explored earlier. It was smaller than I'd expected, with a massive desk and multiple monitors. Rick pressed a few buttons, and the screens came to life, showing camera feeds from what looked like various locations around the city. I have legitimate businesses, he said, his voice matter-of-fact. Restaurants, real estate, import-export. But I also have other interests. Interests that require information, influence, and occasionally, intervention. You're in the Mafia. It wasn't a question. I'm a businessman who understands that some problems can't be solved through legal channels. He turned to face me fully. Your father knows me by reputation. Marco Salvatore has approached me multiple times about potential partnerships, which I've declined. And now you're here, under my roof, wearing clothes I provided, eating food I prepared. Why are you helping me? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He studied me for a long moment before answering. Because when you got into my car yesterday, terrified and desperate, something in me recognized something in you. We're both prisoners, Rachel. You to your father's expectations, me to my family's legacy. The difference is, I've learned to exist within my cage. You're still trying to escape yours. And you think you can help me escape? I think, he said slowly, that we can help each other. You need protection, a new identity, resources to start over. I need. He paused, seeming to search for the right words. I need something real in my life, something that isn't calculated or strategic, someone who sees me as more than a means to an end. The vulnerability in his admission stole my breath. This cold, controlled man was offering me freedom in exchange for authenticity. It was the strangest, most dangerous bargain I'd ever been offered. And God help me, I was considering taking it. What would that look like? I asked carefully. This arrangement? You stay here, under my protection. I'll handle your father and Marco. In return, you'll be yourself. No pretending, no performing. Just Rachel, whoever she is beneath the layers of survival she's built up. You want honesty? In your world? His smile was almost sad. Especially in my world, because honesty is the rarest currency I deal in. I should have said no, should have demanded he help me disappear and then never see him again. Should have recognized the danger of binding myself to another powerful man. But as I stood in Rick Moretti's office, surrounded by evidence of his reach and influence, I realized something crucial. I'd spent my entire life being controlled by men who claimed to love me. Maybe it was time to choose a man who was honest about what he wanted. Okay, I said. I'll stay. I'll be honest. But Rick? I stepped closer, meeting those gray eyes steadily. If you try to cage me the way my father did, I'll run. And next time, you won't find me. Instead of being offended, he smiled. A real smile that transformed his face from coldly handsome to devastatingly attractive. Fair enough, he agreed. Now let's order dinner, and this time you pick the restaurant. 3 days into living with Rick Moretti, I discovered he couldn't cook toast without burning it. I'd woken early, drawn by the acrid smell of smoke, to find him standing in the kitchen glaring at the toaster like it had personally offended him. He wore only sleep pants slung low on his hips, his hair mussed from sleep, looking more human than I'd ever seen him. Do you need help? I asked, trying not to laugh. He turned, those gray eyes narrowing. The toaster is broken. Or, I suggested, moving closer. You have it set too high. I adjusted the dial, popped in 2 new slices of bread. See? Not broken, just temperamental. Temperamental, he repeated, as if the concept of a toaster having moods was foreign to him. Like someone else I know. His mouth twitched. Are you calling me temperamental, Rachel? I'm calling you someone who glares at kitchen appliances when they don't immediately obey. I retrieved the perfectly golden toast when it popped up, spreading butter with practiced ease. Here, not burnt. He took the plate, studying the toast as if I'd performed magic. I usually eat out or have food delivered. I noticed. Your fridge is basically empty except for coffee and condiments. I don't spend much time here. It was the first real personal detail he'd shared, and I found myself curious. Where do you spend your time? Work, meetings, managing various interests. He bit into the toast, made a small sound of appreciation. This is good. It's toast. The bar is pretty low. That almost smile appeared again. Over the past 3 days, I'd learned to read his micro-expressions. The slight softening around his eyes that meant he was amused. The tightening of his jaw when he was angry. The way his fingers drummed against his thigh when he was thinking through something complex. I have to go out today, he said, finishing the toast. A meeting that can't be rescheduled. My stomach sank. The past 3 days had been strange but comfortable. Rick left for several hours each day, returning with updates about my father's search efforts and Marco's increasing frustration. But he always came back. And in the evenings, we'd fallen into an odd routine of cooking together. Me teaching him basic kitchen skills while he told me about the city, the families, the intricate web of alliances and enmities that governed his world. How long will you be gone? Most of the day. But Rachel? He set down his plate, his expression serious. I need you to promise me something. What? My head of security, Marco. He paused at my involuntary flinch. Not Marco Salvatore. Marco Rinaldi. He'll be outside the building all day. If anything happens, if you feel unsafe for any reason, you call this number. He handed me a card with a phone number printed on it. He'll be here in 30 seconds. What could happen? No one knows I'm here. Something dark crossed his face. Your father has put out word that there's a significant reward for information about your whereabouts. And Marco Salvatore is making threats against anyone suspected of harboring you. Cold dread pooled in my stomach. What kind of threats? The kind that make people very motivated to find you. He moved closer, his hand coming up to cup my face with surprising gentleness. You're safe here, Rachel. But I need you to be careful. Don't go out on the balcony where someone might see you. Don't answer the door. Don't make you regret helping me. I know. I'd heard the refrain multiple times now, his thumb traced along my cheekbone. That's not what I was going to say. I was going to say, don't make me worry about you all day when I should be focused on business. The admission felt significant, weighted with an emotion I didn't quite know how to name. We stood like that for a moment, his hand on my face, his eyes searching mine, before he stepped back abruptly. I should get ready. After he left, I spent the morning cleaning the apartment, even though it was already immaculate. It gave me something to do with my hands, a way to feel useful instead of caged. I was in Rick's office, dusting the bookshelves, when I noticed a photo tucked behind some books. It showed a younger Rick, maybe early 20s, with his arm around an older man who shared his strong features. They were both smiling, genuine smiles that transformed Rick's face into something almost unrecognizable. That's my father. I spun around to find Rick in the doorway. I hadn't heard him return. I'm sorry. I was just cleaning and I saw... It's fine. He crossed to me, taking the photo with careful hands. He died 5 years ago. Heart attack, sudden. I'm sorry. He built everything I have now. Started with nothing, a kid from Naples who came here with $20 and a dream. By the time he died, he owned half the real estate in this district. Rick's voice was matter of fact, but I could hear the grief beneath. He taught me everything: how to read people, how to build loyalty, how to know when to be merciful and when to be ruthless. You must miss him. Every day. He set the photo back down carefully. He would have liked you, I think. He always said the best partners in business and in life are the ones who tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Is that what I am? Your partner? His eyes met mine, intense and unreadable. I don't know what you are yet, Rachel, but you're something. The moment stretched between us, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Then Rick's phone buzzed, shattering the intimacy. I have to take this, he said, already moving toward the door. Don't wait up. This meeting might run late. After he left, I found myself staring at the photo for a long time, trying to reconcile the man I'd seen there with the one I was slowly getting to know. Rick Moretti was layers upon layers, each one more complex than the last. I was making dinner when the elevator chimed again. My heart jumped, but it had to be Rick. No one else could access this floor without a key. Except it wasn't Rick who stepped out. It was a man I'd never seen before, tall and broad with cold eyes and an ugly scar across his neck. He smiled when he saw me, but it was the smile of a predator. Well, well, Rachel Marchetti, your daddy's been looking for you. I backed away slowly, my mind racing. The phone. I needed to reach the phone Rick had given me, but it was in the bedroom, impossibly far away. Who are you? How did you get in here? Name's Tommy, and I got friends everywhere, sweetheart, including some who work security in this building. He advanced slowly, clearly enjoying my fear. Your father's offering $50,000 for whoever brings you home. Alive, preferably. But he didn't specify it was a requirement. Rick will kill you, I said, surprised by how steady my voice was. He'll hunt you down and make you disappear. Tommy laughed. Rick Moretti? That's whose place this is? Oh, this is rich. The Ice King himself playing White Knight for Anthony Marchetti's brat. He pulled out his phone. This information's worth way more than $50,000. Marco Salvatore will pay double just to know where you've been hiding. He was distracted, typing on his phone. I didn't think, just grabbed the heavy cast iron pan from the stove and swung it with all my strength. The pan connected with Tommy's skull with a sickening thud. He dropped like a stone, his phone skittering across the floor. I stood there, frozen, the pan still in my hands, staring at his motionless form. Was he dead? Had I killed him? Then I heard it. The elevator chiming again. This time, it was Rick. He took in the scene in a single glance. Me with the pan, Tommy unconscious on the floor, the terror that must have been written all over my face. Are you hurt? His voice was sharp, urgent. I shook my head, unable to form words. In 3 strides, he was beside me, prying the pan from my white-knuckled grip and setting it aside. His hands ran over me quickly, checking for injuries I didn't have. I'm okay, I finally managed. He said his name was Tommy. He knew who I was. He was going to tell my father and Marco where I am. Rick's expression went absolutely cold. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Marco, my apartment, now. We have a problem. Within 2 minutes, Marco Rinaldi appeared with 2 other men. They were efficient and silent, carrying the still unconscious Tommy into the elevator without a word. Marco paused only to nod at Rick before disappearing with his cargo. Then we were alone again. Rick pulled me to the sofa, sat me down, and knelt in front of me. Tell me exactly what happened. I did, the words tumbling out in a rush. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You hit him with the pan. Yes. Good. His voice held a note of approval that surprised me. That took courage. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear, Rachel. It's acting despite it. His hands found mine, warm and steady. But this changes things. If Tommy found you, others will too. Your father's network is extensive. What do we do? Rick stood, pacing to the windows. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. There's a way to end this, to make you untouchable. But you won't like it. Tell me. He turned to face me, and I'd never seen him look so serious. Marry me. The world seemed to tilt sideways. What? In my world, family is everything. Wives, children, blood relations, they're sacred, untouchable. If you're my wife, your father can't force you to marry Marco. Marco can't touch you without starting a war with me. And no one would dare come after you. That's insane. We barely know each other. I know you're brave, he said, moving closer. I know you're resourceful. I know you can't cook anything except toast. But you're teaching me, so that counts for something. I know you read poetry when you think I'm not looking. I know you hum while you clean. I know the sight of you in my apartment, in my space, feels right in a way nothing else ever has. That's not knowing me. That's observing me. Then what do you want to know? He spread his arms. Ask me anything. I'll give you complete honesty. Why do you really want to help me? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because a year ago, I was supposed to marry someone. A strategic alliance, arranged by our families. Her name was Lucia. We'd known each other since childhood. My breath caught. What happened? 3 days before the wedding, she came to me. Told me she was in love with someone else. A civilian. Someone from outside our world. She begged me to let her go. His voice was carefully controlled. I told her duty came before personal happiness. That our families needed this alliance. That she would learn to be content. Rick. She killed herself the night before the wedding. Left a note saying she couldn't live in a cage, even a gilded one. Horror washed over me. I'm so sorry. I've spent a year living with that guilt, Rachel. Knowing I could have freed her and chose not to. When you got into my car in that wedding dress, running from a marriage you didn't want, all I could see was Lucia. And I thought, here's my chance. I can't undo what I did to her, but I can help you. The raw pain in his voice made my chest ache. So this is about guilt? About easing your conscience? It started that way, he admitted. But it's become something more. These past few days, having you here, watching you transform my sterile apartment into something that feels like a home. Rachel, I haven't felt this alive in years, and I know that's selfish. I know I'm asking you to trade one cage for another, but at least this cage comes with honesty, with choice, with someone who sees you as a person instead of property. I stood, needing to move, to think. Marriage is permanent, Rick. Legal, binding. Not if you don't want it to be. We could divorce after a year, after your father and Marco have moved on. I'd give you resources, a new identity, anything you needed to start over. Or, his eyes met mine, or it could become real, if we wanted it to. The possibility hung between us, terrifying and tempting in equal measure. Rick Moretti was offering me protection wrapped in honesty. A cage I could leave if I chose. It was more than anyone had ever offered me before. I need time to think. Take all the time you need, he said softly. But Rachel, Tommy won't be the last. Your father is getting desperate. And desperate men do terrible things. I said yes 2 days later. Not because of Tommy, though his appearance had shaken me more than I wanted to admit. Not because Rick kept the pressure on. He didn't. He'd given me space, treating me with the same courteous distance he might show a house guest, never mentioning his proposal again. I said yes, because of the flowers. I'd woken to find a single white rose on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. Just one perfect bloom in a simple vase. The next morning, there were 2 roses, then 3. On the 4th day, I found Rick in the kitchen, adding the 4th rose to the collection. "Why roses?" I asked. He didn't turn around. My mother used to say that roses were the only flowers honest enough to come with thorns. Beauty and danger in equal measure. It reminded me of you. Something in my chest cracked open at that. This cold, controlled man was trying to court me in the only way he knew how. With honesty. With patience. With small gestures that said more than words ever could. "Okay," I said softly. He turned then, those gray eyes searching my face. "Okay? I'll marry you, but I have conditions." Relief flickered across his features so quickly, I might have imagined it. "Name them." "First, this stays a business arrangement. No expectations of anything beyond protection and companionship." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Agreed. What else?" "Second, if I want to leave after a year, you help me disappear. No tracking me down, no using your resources to find me. You let me go completely." "Agreed." "Third, I want to work, something meaningful. I can't spend every day in this apartment waiting for you to come home." "I can arrange that." He moved closer. "Anything else?" "Yes. I want honesty. Always. Even when it's ugly. Even when it hurts. No more secrets between us." Something shifted in his expression. "That's a dangerous condition, Rachel. There are things about my business, my life, that you might not want to know. Then I'll decide what I can handle. But no lies. Ever." He studied me for a long moment, then extended his hand. "Deal." I shook it, his grip warm and firm. "When?" "As soon as possible. I'll make the arrangements." 48 hours later, I stood in a courthouse wearing a simple cream dress Rick had somehow procured overnight, repeating vows that felt both binding and surreal. Marco Rinaldi served as witness, his face carefully neutral. The whole ceremony took less than 10 minutes. Mrs. Rachel Moretti. The name felt foreign on the marriage certificate I signed with shaking hands. "We should celebrate," Rick said as we left the courthouse. "Dinner somewhere?" "Actually," I said, surprising myself. "Could we just go home? Order in? I'm not ready to be seen in public yet." His expression softened. "Of course." Home. I'd called his apartment home without thinking, and from the slight smile on Rick's face he'd noticed. That evening, we sat at his kitchen island with Thai food spread between us, the awkwardness of our new legal status making conversation stilted. "I have something for you," Rick said finally, pulling a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring. Not a diamond, but a delicate band of platinum inlaid with tiny sapphires. It was beautiful and understated, and somehow exactly what I would have chosen. "The sapphires match your eyes when you're angry," he said, slipping it onto my finger, which is often. Despite everything, I laughed. "Are you saying I'm temperamental?" "I'm saying you're alive in a way most people aren't. Fully present, fully feeling everything." His thumb traced over the ring on my finger. "It's remarkable." The moment stretched between us, charged with possibilities neither of us were ready to explore. Then Rick's phone buzzed, shattering the intimacy. His expression darkened as he read the message. "It's your father. He's called a meeting with the families. Tomorrow night." My stomach dropped. "What kind of meeting?" "The kind where he'll demand they help him find you, where he'll call in favors and make threats." Rick's voice was grim. and where I'll have to tell him you're my wife. Terror clawed at my throat. He'll kill you, or try to. Let him try. Rick's voice was cold. You're under my protection now, Rachel, and I protect what's mine. The word mine should have bothered me. Instead, it made something warm unfurl in my chest. The next evening, Rick insisted I come with him to the meeting. You need to be seen, he explained. They need to understand you're not a victim I'm holding hostage, that you chose this. Did I choose it, or did circumstances force my hand? He studied me for a moment. Does it matter? Either way, you're here. Either way, you're mine now. He paused. Unless you want me to take you somewhere safe while I handle this? No. The word surprised me with its firmness. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. Something that might have been approval crossed his face. Then you'll need to look the part. He led me to a room I hadn't explored yet. Inside was a closet full of women's clothes, all in my size, all designer labels. Dresses, suits, casual wear, everything organized by color and type. When did you do this? I breathed. I made a call yesterday. They delivered while you were sleeping. He pulled out a black dress that was elegant without being revealing. This one, with your hair up. The sapphire ring, but no other jewelry. You need to look like someone who belongs at my side, not like a frightened girl playing dress-up. His bluntness should have stung. Instead, it felt like preparation, like a general arming his soldier before battle. An hour later, I stood in front of the mirror barely recognizing myself. The dress fit perfectly, sophisticated and mature. My hair was swept up in a style I'd only seen on magazine covers. The ring caught the light, a subtle but unmistakable claim. Perfect, Rick said from the doorway. He wore a black suit that made him look dangerous and untouchable. One more thing. He approached, fastening a thin platinum chain around my neck. A small pendant nestled at my throat, a stylized M in diamonds. Moretti, he explained, so everyone knows exactly who you belong to. Romantic, I said dryly. His mouth quirked. I'm not romantic, Rachel. I'm practical. And practically speaking, that necklace might save your life tonight. The drive to the meeting was silent, tension radiating from Rick's rigid posture. Marco drove while two other men I didn't recognize followed in a second car. What should I expect? I asked finally. Anger, accusations, possibly threats, though they'll be veiled. Rick's hand found mine, his grip reassuring. Your father will try to intimidate you. Marco Salvatore will try to humiliate you. Let them. Don't engage. Just stay beside me and let me handle it. And if I can't stay quiet? A slight smile. Then I suppose we'll see exactly how brave you really are. The meeting was held in a private room at an upscale restaurant, the kind with no menu and servers who anticipated your needs before you voiced them. As we entered, conversation died. My father sat at the head of the table, his face purpling when he saw me. Marco Salvatore was beside him, his dead eyes finally showing something. Rage. Rachel. My father's voice was low, dangerous. You have 30 seconds to explain yourself before I drag you out of here by your hair. Rick's hand tightened on mine warningly, but I stepped forward, my voice steady. I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm married now, to Rick Moretti. The wedding was 2 days ago. The room erupted. My father surged to his feet, Marco close behind. Other men around the table began shouting, some in Italian, some in English, all of them clearly shocked. You have no right, my father roared. She was promised to Marco. A contract was signed. A contract you signed without her consent, Rick said, his voice cutting through the chaos. Rachel is of legal age. She made her choice, and in our world, wives are sacrosanct. Or have you forgotten the old laws? I'll kill you, Marco Salvatore snarled. "I'll gut you and everyone you care about." Rick smiled, cold and sharp. "Try it. Please. I've been looking for an excuse to end you for years." The threat hung in the air, real and deadly. Marco's hand moved toward his jacket, but two of Rick's men materialized beside him, their meaning clear. "Enough." An older man I didn't recognize spoke from the far end of the table. "Anthony, your daughter married according to the law. Rick Moretti is respected among the families. This matter is closed." "Closed?" My father's voice was barely human. "She's my daughter." "She was your daughter," the older man corrected. "Now she's Moretti's wife. Accept it or face consequences from all of us for breaking tradition." I watched my father's face cycle through emotions. Rage, calculation, impotent fury. Finally, he turned to me. "You've made your choice, Rachel. Don't come crying to me when you realize what kind of monster you've married." "I know exactly what kind of man I married," I said quietly. "The kind who asked my permission. The kind who gave me a choice. The kind who's never raised his hand to me in anger. Which is more than I can say for you." My father lunged, but Rick was faster, stepping between us with fluid grace. They stood face to face, two men from the same world, but separated by something fundamental. "Touch her again," Rick said softly, "and I'll forget we're in public." My father backed down. I'd never seen him back down before. As we left, Rick's arm around my waist, I felt something shift. I'd faced my father and Marco and survived. More than survived. I'd stood my ground. In the car, Rick pulled me close. "You were magnificent." I was terrified. That makes it even more impressive. His lips brushed my temple. "Welcome to our world, Mrs. Moretti." Our world. Somehow, impossibly, I was beginning to believe I might actually belong here. 2 weeks into being Mrs. Moretti, I discovered I was actually good at organized crime. Not the violent parts. Rick kept those carefully separate from me. But the logistics, the planning, the web of connections that needed constant maintenance, that apparently came naturally. It started innocently enough. Rick had been on the phone for hours, growing increasingly frustrated with whoever was on the other end. I'd been reading in his office, trying to stay out of the way, but the conversation was impossible to ignore. "No, I need the shipment moved by Thursday, not Friday. Thursday." His jaw was tight with irritation. "Because the inspections happen Friday morning, and if it's still in the warehouse, yes, I'm aware of the logistics. Find a way." He hung up, rubbing his temples. The first sign of stress I'd seen him show. "Problem?" I asked. "Nothing I can't handle." But his tone suggested otherwise. I set down my book. "You're trying to move something before an inspection. What if you split the shipment? Send half to the restaurant on Sullivan Street. You said you own that, right? The kitchen has that massive storage area. The other half could go to the building you're renovating on the waterfront. No one's going to inspect an active construction site." Rick stared at me. "How did you know about the restaurant?" "I listened when you talked to Marco, and I looked through some of the files on your desk." I shrugged. "You said no secrets, remember?" "I said no lies. I didn't give you permission to go through my business documents." "Did you specifically forbid it?" His mouth twitched. "No." "Then I wasn't breaking any rules." I stood, moving to his desk to pull up a map on his computer. "Look, if you move it tomorrow night, use the smaller trucks. You can have everything distributed before Thursday morning. The inspection happens, finds nothing, and you're clear." He studied the map, then me. "That would actually work." "I know. You're enjoying this." I considered that. Was I enjoying helping plan what was probably something illegal? The old Rachel would have been horrified. But the old Rachel had also been suffocating under her father's control, preparing to marry a monster. "Maybe I am," I admitted. "Is that wrong?" "Not to me." He pulled me into his lap before I could protest, his arms circling my waist. We'd been careful about physical contact since the wedding, maintaining the professional distance we'd agreed on. But lately, the boundaries had been blurring. A touch that lingered too long. His hand at the small of my back as we moved through a room. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. "Rachel," he murmured against my hair. "You're dangerous." "Why?" "Because you're making me forget all the reasons I should keep my distance." My heart hammered. "We agreed. I know what we agreed." His grip tightened. "But that was before I realized how perfectly you fit here. How much I look forward to coming home to you. How the sight of you in my kitchen making coffee might be the best part of my day." I should have pulled away. Should have reminded him of our arrangement, our conditions, our carefully maintained boundaries. Instead, I turned in his arms, my hands coming to rest on his chest. "Rick." His phone shattered the moment. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. "I have to take this." After he left, I sat in his chair, my pulse still racing. We were getting too close, blurring too many lines. It was dangerous for both of us. That evening, Rick took me to a charity gala. "You need to be seen," he'd explained, established as my wife in social circles, not just family ones. The gala was exactly what I'd expected. Wealthy people in expensive clothes, drinking expensive champagne, pretending to care about whatever cause was being championed. But what surprised me was how naturally I navigated it. Rick introduced me to dozens of people, and I remembered every name, every connection, every subtle detail that might be useful later. I watched interactions, noted who deferred to whom, who was pretending friendship while harboring resentment. "You're good at this," Rick murmured as we moved through the crowd. Better than I expected, and I spent my whole life watching my father work rooms like this. I learned from the best manipulator I knew. His hand tightened on my waist. "You're nothing like him." "Aren't I?" "I'm using these same skills to help you." The difference is choice. You're choosing to be here, choosing to help. That matters. We were separated when a woman approached Rick, pulling him into conversation about a real estate deal. I drifted toward the bar, ordering water, when I felt someone's presence beside me. "Mrs. Moretti, we haven't been formally introduced." I turned to find a man in his 40s, handsome in a polished way, with cold blue eyes. Everything about him screamed danger. "I'm sorry, have we met?" "Vittorio Castellano. I knew your father, and Marco Salvatore." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Quite the scandal. Your marriage to Moretti. Some might say you traded one cage for another." "And what would you say?" "I'd say you're either very clever or very naive. Rick Moretti isn't known for his warmth. Makes me wonder what he really wants from you." The implied threat was clear. He was trying to plant seeds of doubt, to make me question Rick's motives. "What he wants," I said clearly, "is what I've already given him. My loyalty, my trust, my name. If that confuses you, Mr. Castellano, perhaps you should examine your own relationships." His expression hardened. "Careful, Mrs. Moretti. Your new name offers some protection, but not immunity." "Is that a threat?" "It's friendly advice. Women who get too involved in their husband's business often find themselves in dangerous positions. Then it's fortunate I know exactly how dangerous my position is. And I choose to be here anyway." Rick appeared then, his arm sliding around my waist with casual possession. "Castellano, I see you've met my wife." "I have. Charming woman. You're a lucky man." "I know." Rick's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "If you'll excuse us, we have other people to see." As we walked away, Rick's grip tightened. "What did he say to you?" "He tried to warn me away from you, suggested I was naive or being used." "And what did you tell him?" that I know exactly what I signed up for and I'm choosing it anyway. Rick stopped walking, turned me to face him. Did you mean that? I looked up at this man who'd become so much more than a convenient escape, who made me coffee exactly how I liked it, who listened when I talked about books and ideas, who valued my mind as much as my loyalty. Yes, I admitted. I meant it. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Good, because Castellano is dangerous. He's been trying to undermine my position for years, and now he sees you as a potential weakness. I won't be your weakness. You could never be my weakness, Rachel. His hand cupped my face. You're my strength. My partner. An explosion rocked the building. Everything happened in slow motion. Rick's body covering mine, pushing me down as glass shattered and screams erupted. Smoke filled the air, acrid and choking. Someone was shooting. I could hear the sharp crack of gunfire over the chaos. Stay down, Rick ordered, his body shielding mine completely. Then Marco was there with other men, forming a protective circle around us. Boss, we need to move. Now. Rick hauled me to my feet, his arm like steel around my waist as we ran. The gala had transformed into a war zone. People fleeing, security scrambling, the smell of smoke and fear everywhere. We made it to the car. Marco drove while Rick kept me pressed against him in the back seat, his hands running over me, checking for injuries I didn't have. I'm okay, I kept saying. Rick, I'm fine. You could have been killed. His voice was raw in a way I'd never heard. If I'd been a second slower, if you'd been standing 2 feet to the left. But I wasn't. I'm here. I'm safe. His arms tightened to the point of pain. This is my world, Rachel. This is what you married into. Violence and danger and enemies who won't hesitate to hurt you to get to me. I know. You should leave. I'll help you disappear like I promised. Set you up somewhere safe where men like Castellano can't touch you. I pulled back, forcing him to look at me. Is that what you want? For me to leave. I want you safe. That's not what I asked. Do you want me to leave? His jaw clenched. No, God help me, no. I want you exactly where you are. In my home, in my life, by my side. But that's selfish. I kissed him, cutting off his words with my lips, my hands fisting in his hair, all the tension and fear and desperate need channeling into that kiss. He responded immediately, his control shattering as he kissed me back with a hunger that stole my breath. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. I'm not leaving, I said firmly. Not because of Castellano, not because of the danger. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. Rachel, and when we get home, when you're sure I'm really okay, we're going to talk about ending the professional distance part of our arrangement. Because I don't want to be your business partner anymore, Rick. I want to be your wife. Really your wife. His eyes darkened with desire and something deeper. You don't know what you're asking for. Then show me. Back at the apartment, Rick was on me before the elevator doors fully closed. His kiss was desperate, possessive, claiming. His hands were everywhere, as if reassuring himself I was real, solid, alive. You could have died tonight, he breathed against my throat. When I saw that explosion, saw you so close to the danger. Rachel, I've never been so terrified. I'm here. I'm safe, because you protected me. His laugh was harsh. I brought you into this world, put a target on your back by making you mine. I was already a target, I reminded him. My father, Marco. I was never safe. But with you, at least I have someone willing to fight for me instead of selling me to the highest bidder. He pulled back, his gray eyes searching mine. I need you to be sure. Once we cross this line, I'm sure. I reached up, tracing the scar on his cheekbone. I've been sure for days. I just needed the right moment to admit it. This is the right moment, after a bombing. The right moment is when I'm absolutely certain I could have lost you tonight, and it would have destroyed me. Something in his expression shifted, softened. When did you get so brave? When I married a man who taught me that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing what matters despite being terrified. He swept me into his arms, carrying me toward his bedroom, our bedroom now. I don't deserve you. Probably not, I agreed, but you're stuck with me anyway. As he lowered me onto the bed, his hands gentle despite the desire burning in his eyes, I realized something fundamental had changed. This wasn't a business arrangement anymore. This wasn't protection in exchange for honesty. This was real, messy and dangerous, and impossibly real, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and Rick's arm heavy across my waist. For a moment I just lay there, cataloging the changes. His bedroom, our bedroom now, smelled like him, that woody cologne mixed with something uniquely his. My body ached in ways that made me blush, remembering exactly how we'd spent the night. Rick stirred behind me, pulling me closer, his lips finding the curve where my neck met my shoulder. "Morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning." I turned in his arms to face him. In the soft morning light, he looked younger, more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. "Any regrets?" "Only that we waited so long." His hand traced down my spine. "You?" "None." His smile was slow and genuine, transforming his face. "Good, because you're not leaving this bed for at least another hour." "Rick." "Non-negotiable." I laughed, the sound surprising me with its lightness. When was the last time I'd felt this happy, this safe, this utterly at peace? An hour later, we finally emerged to find Marco Rinaldi waiting in the living room, his expression grim. "Boss, we need to talk." Rick's demeanor shifted instantly, becoming the cold, controlled man I'd first met. "Give me 5 minutes." After he disappeared into his office with Marco, I made coffee, trying not to worry about what could have Marco looking so serious. The bombing last night had been traced to Castellano. Rick had gotten that information before we'd even made it home. But something in Marco's expression suggested this was worse. When Rick emerged 20 minutes later, his face was carved from stone. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. "Castellano's making his move. He's leaked information about my business operations to the FBI. They're opening an investigation." Cold dread pooled in my stomach. "What does that mean?" "It means things are about to get complicated." He pulled me close. "I need you to do something for me, Rachel. I need you to go stay with Marco's family for a few days while I handle this." "Absolutely not." His grip tightened. "This isn't a request. And I'm not a piece of furniture you can store somewhere safe while things get messy." I pulled back, forcing him to look at me. "We're partners, remember? You don't get to protect me by shutting me out." "Rachel." "No. Last night you told me I was your strength. Prove it. Let me stand beside you instead of hiding me away." Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, maybe, or fear. Finally, he nodded. "Okay. But you do exactly what I say when I say it." "Agreed." "Agreed." Over the next 3 days, I watched Rick Moretti dismantle Vittorio Castellano's life with surgical precision. It was terrifying and fascinating in equal measure. First, the business interests. Rick had contacts everywhere: judges, politicians, business leaders. Within 48 hours, Castellano's legitimate operations were drowning in inspections, audits, and mysteriously canceled contracts. "How are you doing this?" I asked one evening, as Rick worked through another set of phone calls. "I'm calling in favors, reminding people who they're really loyal to." His voice was matter of fact. "Castellano made a mistake when he went after you, Rachel. He thought targeting my wife would make me look weak. Instead, He gave me justification to destroy him completely. The cold calculation in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I felt oddly protected. This was what Rick Moretti was capable of when someone threatened what was his. And I was his now, in every way that mattered. But Castellano wasn't going down quietly. On the fourth day, I was in Rick's office reviewing some shipping schedules when Marco burst in, his face pale. "Boss, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Castellano's men grabbed someone. A woman. They're saying she's leverage. My blood ran cold. Who? Marco's eyes slid to me, then back to Rick. They're saying it's Mrs. Moretti. Rick went absolutely still. Explain. They grabbed a woman matching Rachel's description from outside the building an hour ago. Castellano called 5 minutes ago. He wants to negotiate. But I'm right here, I said, confusion warring with fear. Rick's jaw tightened. Isabella. He grabbed Isabella Cortese. She has dark hair, similar build to Rachel. From a distance, in the right clothes. Understanding dawned. Isabella, who'd come to the apartment weeks ago, who Rick had warned away, who must have been watching, waiting for an opportunity. She was pretending to be me? Or Castellano's men made an honest mistake? Rick was already moving, grabbing his phone. Either way, we need to get her back before they realize their error. Why? The question emerged before I could stop it. She's not exactly friendly to me. Rick paused, looking at me with something like approval. Because she's an innocent in this. Because her father has been loyal to me for years. And because I don't let civilians get hurt in our wars, even when they make stupid decisions. The response made something warm unfold in my chest. This was the man beneath the cold exterior. Someone with lines he wouldn't cross, principles he wouldn't compromise. What do you need me to do? I asked. Stay here with Marco's men. Don't go near the windows. Don't answer the door for anyone. Rick. He crossed to me, his hands framing my face. I'll bring her back safely, I promise. But I need to know you're safe while I do it. I wanted to argue, to insist on coming with him. But the fear in his eyes stopped me. He was terrified, not for Isabella but for me. Terrified that Castellano might realize his mistake and come looking for the real Rachel Moretti. Be careful, I whispered instead. Always. He kissed me, hard and possessive. I'll be back soon. After he left, the apartment felt cavernously empty despite Marco's men stationed throughout. I tried to focus on work, on the documents spread across Rick's desk. But my mind kept drifting to what might be happening. 2 hours passed, then 3. My phone remained silent. At hour 4, I heard it, the elevator chiming. Relief flooded through me as Rick strode out, Isabella beside him looking shaken but unharmed. You're okay, I breathed. We're fine. Rick's voice was tight. Isabella, you can wait in the guest room while I call your father. After Isabella disappeared, Rick pulled me into his arms, his grip almost painful in its intensity. It's over, he said against my hair. Castellano's dead. He reached for his gun during the exchange. My men didn't give him a choice. I should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual way he announced another man's death. Instead, I just held him tighter. Good. He pulled back, searching my face. Good? He tried to hurt you, tried to use me against you. Yes, good. I met his eyes steadily. Does that make me a bad person? It makes you mine, he said simply. My wife, my partner. Someone who understands that sometimes violence is the only answer. I'm not sure I'll ever understand that completely. But I trust your judgment. Something shifted in his expression. You trust me. With my life. His kiss was different this time, not desperate or claiming, but tender, reverent, as though I were something precious. "Marry me again," he said, when we finally broke apart. I laughed. "We're already married." "Legally, yes. But I want to do it right this time. Church, family, a celebration. I want everyone to know you're mine by choice, not convenience. Rick, I love you." The words were quiet, but absolute. "I've loved you since you climbed into my car in that ridiculous wedding dress, all fierce defiance and terror. I loved you when you burned my toast and reorganized my entire business structure. I loved you when you stood up to your father and when you hit Tommy with a frying pan. And I'll love you every day for the rest of my life if you'll let me." Tears pricked my eyes. "You love me." Desperately. Completely. In ways that terrify me because it gives you power over me that no one else has ever had. His hands trembled slightly as they cupped my face. "So yes, marry me again. Make it real in every way that matters." "It's already real," I said, my own voice thick with emotion. "But yes, I'll marry you again. I'll marry you 100 times if that's what you want." His smile was brilliant, unguarded in a way I'd never seen. "I want you. Just you. For the rest of my life. Then you have me." 3 months later, I stood in a church wearing a dress I'd actually chosen, surrounded by people who'd become family in ways I'd never expected. Marco Rinaldi stood as Rick's best man, grinning like he'd personally orchestrated our happiness. Isabella, forgiven and now a genuine friend, stood as my maid of honor. When Rick slid a new ring onto my finger, this one a band of diamonds that caught the light and scattered it like stars, I barely heard the traditional vows. All I could focus on was the man before me, this dangerous, complicated man who'd saved me in every way a person could be saved. "I love you," I whispered, as the priest pronounced us husband and wife for the second time. "I know," Rick murmured back, his smile wicked. "You tell me every night. Cocky. Confident. There's a difference." At the reception, I watched Rick work the room with his usual controlled grace, but now his eyes constantly sought mine. Every few minutes, he'd find me in the crowd, his expression softening in a way that was just for me. "You've changed him," Marco said, appearing at my elbow with champagne. "I've known Rick for 20 years, never seen him smile like that." "He's changed me too," I admitted. 6 months ago, I was running from a wedding to a man I didn't love. Now I'm celebrating a marriage to a man I can't imagine living without. That's how it should be. Partnership, not ownership. Rick still calls me his, and you call him yours. That's the difference. Marco clinked his glass against mine. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Moretti. Really, this time." Later, as Rick and I danced under lights that turned the ordinary reception hall into something magical, he pulled me close. "Happy?" he asked, deliriously. "No regrets about jumping into that car?" I thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the danger, the impossible choices. Then I looked up at this man who'd given me freedom by offering me protection, who'd valued my mind as much as my loyalty, who'd loved me fiercely without trying to control me. "Not even one," I said honestly. "Best decision I ever made." "Even better than hitting Tommy with the frying pan?" "That's a close second." His laugh was warm and genuine, drawing smiles from everyone around us. This was Rick Moretti without his armor, just a man in love with his wife, celebrating the life they were building together. "I have something to tell you," I said as the song wound down. "Should I be worried?" "That depends on how you feel about becoming a father." Rick froze, his eyes going wide. "Are you—" "8 weeks. I found out this morning." I bit my lip. "I know we didn't plan this, that it's fast, but—" He kissed me, cutting off my worried rambling. When he pulled back, His eyes were suspiciously bright. "A baby," he breathed. "Our baby. Are you happy? Happy?" He laughed, the sound breaking slightly. "Rachel, you've given me everything. A real home, a real marriage, and now a family. I don't think happy even begins to cover it." As we swayed together, his hand resting protectively over my still flat stomach, I thought about the girl who'd fled her wedding in a panic 6 months ago. She'd been looking for escape, for safety, for freedom from a cage she'd been born into. Instead, she'd found something infinitely better. She'd found a partner who valued her strength, a protector who never demanded weakness in return, a man who'd helped her become someone she'd never imagined she could be. "I love you," Rick murmured against my hair. "You and this baby. My family. Mine to protect. Mine to cherish. Mine to love." "Yours," I agreed, the word no longer feeling like surrender but like power. "And you're mine, Rick Moretti. Don't ever forget that." "Never," he promised. "Not for a single day for the rest of our lives." And as I stood in his arms, surrounded by family and friends, carrying our child and building our future, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. I'd escaped my wedding to Marco. I'd hidden in Rick Moretti's car. And I'd found my home